Hey there, CPO here, and I'm going to do a video on installing a leveling kit and wheel spacers on my 2015 Wrangler here. So I wanted to get rid of the factory rake. I was okay with a little bit of a lift, but I'm leaving these stock rims and tires on. Actually, one of the things I really liked about the Willys was this blacked out rim, and of course it comes with the Ruby suspension and these off-road tires. And I really didn't want to change those out. I want to get rid of the rake, get this front end lifted a little bit, and I was okay with a little bit of an overall lift. So I went with the Teraflex, I think it's an 1.5 inch leveling kit, comes with 2 spacers for the front coils, and then this for the rear. So it's basically 2 inches lift in the front, 1 inch in the rear. And then I'm going to put these wheel spacers on. And these are Spidertrax 1.5 inch spacers, and that'll widen out the stance a little bit to go along with that lift. And I think all of that will look good with the stock wheels and tires. So I'm not a mechanic. I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. No, I'm just kidding. So I wanted to do a video from a real guy sort of perspective. I've never worked on this Jeep before. I've worked on, I haven't worked on a vehicle in a while. I've put several lift kits and leveling kits on in the past, but it's been probably, 10 years since I've wrenched on a vehicle. So I looked at instructions, I looked at videos, read the forums. I have an idea, I think, on what I want to do. I did a lot of mental prep work for this, but I didn't see a video that really made it clear, one source that kind of cleared things up. Most of them are from the perspective of a professional who knows what's going on, or it's on a lift. So this is me by myself in my garage doing this, and hopefully it'll be helpful for those who are interested in trying the same thing. So we'll see how long this takes, and let's do it. So I'm going to use the wheels on method for this, kind of. I'm actually going to pull the one wheel that I'm working on, and I'm going to do 1 corner at a time. So instead of lifting up the entire Jeep and pulling off the fronts and then working on the front, putting it back, pulling off the backs, working on the back, I'm going to do sort of corner by corner. And I think that makes the most sense. Getting articulation by lifting 1 corner should be able to get those springs out pretty easy. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do here is loosen up these lugs on the tire. And I'm going to jack it up just enough to where the tire clears. I'm going to put a jack stand underneath the axle, and I'm going to pull the tire off. So essentially it'd be the same height as leaving the tire on. It'll just be jack standed instead of tired. That way I can get in there and loosen up everything I want to loosen up before I actually lift the whole corner of the Jeep. All right, that's loose enough. All right, the tire just cleared. All right, so now the entire thing is resting on the jack stand and the suspension is recompressed again. All right, I'm going to unbolt and remove these sway bar links. For this I need 18mm and 19mm wrenches. It's kind of funky. I've got this 18mm is kind of hard to find, so I'm going to use a crescent wrench for this bolt right here, which should be an 18mm. I just don't have one that'll fit in there easily. And then I've got a 18mm ratchet. So I'm fairly fortunate in the fact that this is a fairly new Jeep. I've got just over 1,000 miles on it, so everything should come apart easily. And while I do have an impact wrench, I think for me it's probably just easier to do this with a hand wrench here, just because of access. And then for this top, you need a 19mm to hold that. And see if I can ratchet this from the other side. All right, Sway bar end link gone, and we're going to replace this. The kit comes with a different link. I'll need the same mounting hardware though. Next I'm going to do the lower shock bolt. These are both 18 millimeter. Here's that funky 18 I've got. Works perfect. All right, that shock is free. Next, I'm going to unbolt this brake bracket. That's a little 10 millimeter. Okay, that's out of the way. Put my screw there just so I can find it later. Okay, well, that's that. Next, I want to loosen up the upper and lower control arm bolts, just to free up tension on these bushings. Those are 22 millimeter. I need something with some leverage on it, so I'm pulling off the longer torque wrench to loosen these up. Basically all we're doing is freeing up the tension on those bushings. There's another one here in the back. I'm actually going to have to crawl under here to get to that one. I did put another jack stand next to my jack because I'm now going underneath. So I got to get to that one. It's going to be a little bit tougher from this side, so I'm going to go underneath. Alright, those are loose. There's an upper control arm up in here, and there's a little shroud protecting it, a little metal shroud. So I'm going to pull off that little metal shroud so I can loosen those, but I'll try and show you what it looks like. Alright, so here we are. This is the lower control arm that I just undid, and then right above it is the upper control arm. Hard to see, but there's a little shroud here that covers it. You can see this bar here. What I want to do is get in here and loosen up this bolt right here, but I need to remove that to be able to get to it. Alright, I was able to move that shroud by just loosening this bottom one, removing the bottom one and loosening the top one. And then I just need to go in there and loosen up this bolt right here. I brought the light down here so you can see better. This is the infamous 18 millimeter. I'm just using a wrench. Wrench it with one hand and Cameron with the other. So when I torque it back up, obviously I'll use the torque wrench. That's good enough. Alrighty, and then the other side is right there. And that is also an 18 millimeter. So this is arguably the most challenging part of this, and it's debatable whether or not it's even required. But as far as I can tell, from everybody that seems to know anything about lifting vehicles, is you want to loosen these up and then retorque them under load with the new configuration. So all I'm doing is loosen them so that I can retorque them when I'm done. I think a lot of people probably skip this step and it probably works out fine for them, but I'm doing it. So anyway, these are now loose. And the last thing I want to loosen up is this track bar here. That is going to be, yep, a 22. Okay, now what I'm going to do is use this jack and flex up this corner so that we can get the spring to come clear. Now there is nothing else on this side for me to worry about. The brake line is loose. This is a Willys, not a Rubicon, so there's no locker wiring or anything like that to worry about. Let me take a look down here. That's almost free. Let me go check the other side, make sure nothing's binding. Everything looks good. And this is now free to come out. This comes down. These are going to go up there. It's going to end up just like that. Alright, now that I've got the isolator and the two spacers in there, I'm going to put the spring back on. Now if I lift it up just a little bit more, I should be able to clear. Just like that, and make sure you get the spring back aligned with this groove. That should be good. I'm going to go ahead and lower it just a smidge now. All right, like that. All right, we're going to replace the factory sway bar end link with this longer one from Teraflex. It comes with a lock nut and a washer for the top. Don't forget these washers. And then on the bottom, there's a sleeve that's going to go in here, and it's just going to press inside. Just like that. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just lower this just a little. So this will line up nicely. I will torque these down later. I won't forget. I promise. Take care of the top one, which is a 19. It's always got to be different. Now I can reattach this brake line bracket. Probably would be quicker with a little ratchet, but sometimes I'm a glutton for punishment. All right. And then now I'm going to lower it just a smidge so those line up. As you can see, I'm trying to use the jack to do my heavy lifting for me. Less muscle for me to have to exert. So I can see this could easily be done with the tire on, but man, what a pain that would be. Just the ability to get in here with my whole body sure makes it nicer. Just make sure you got everything properly secured with stands. Alright. So that's essentially it for the passenger side. I've got the 2 spacers in, the extended link here, and everything put back together. What I'm going to do now is torque these things that I loosened up. I'll save the control arms, track bar torquing for after. But let me find out the torque values for these things. Alright, it's asking for 56 foot-pounds here on the lower shock. Okay, that's that. 75 foot-pounds for these links. There's 75. All right. There's 75. All right, so this side is effectively done, other than the final torque, like I said, of those arms. Next, while I've got the tire off, I'm going to put the spacer on, and then we'll go to the other side. All right, the spacer kit comes with a little bit of red thread locker, medium strength, high strength. I don't know, because red could mean anything. Red is not always red. So just use what's in the kit and you'll be safe. Over the top, make sure it sits flush. All right, now these are going to get torqued to 90 foot-pounds. So to torque these down, they recommend having somebody go in and hold the brake. So my son is in there holding the brake so that the rotor doesn't spin while I'm torquing it. Okay, now we can put the tire on. There we go. So I finished the driver's side, and quite frankly, it went actually easier than the other side, probably because I've done it already. A couple things to note that are different on this side. Number one, this upper link is right next to this frame piece, which means getting a ratchet in here was, for me anyway, didn't seem feasible, so I used a wrench. Now, when I torqued these down, which I already hit with the torque wrench, I just manually torqued this down to what I felt like was consistent with this bottom piece. So I couldn't see a real easy way to get a wrench back in there, at least with the equipment I have. So that's kind of one of the challenges I ran into. Number two, the only other thing I had to do differently, I did pull this breather tube off of the transfer case so that it would not bind up when I raised it. But anyway, outside of that, everything else went easy peasy lemon squeezy. So all I have left to do now is put the spacer and the wheel back on. I'll show you this other side now that it's completely done. It's noticeably higher. I wasn't sure how obvious it was going to be, but it's pretty noticeable. And you can see now the tire is kind of outside. You know, I added an 1.5 inch width to it, so it's fairly well in line with that fender well. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, let me put this other tire on, and then we'll move to the back side. So I don't know if I showed this before on the other tire. I may have not, I don't remember now, but you can remove these retainer clips before you put on the spacer. So don't forget that. Oh, one last thing. I'm pretty sure I didn't show you this on the other side. There's a Zerk fitting that goes on the bottom of these. Make sure you put that on. It's on both sides. I don't know if you can see it from here. Anyway, I think I forgot to show you that. And by the way, that is not a metric. That's an SAE. I forget what size it was, but anyway, if you're using the metric 10 millimeter, it will be close, but not quite. So use whatever is close to that. I forget. All right, there's the front completed. I'm whooped, man. It is just a little bit higher than the rear, which is to be expected because I haven't put the rear in yet. But yeah, it's amazing how much of a difference 2 inches can make. Anyway, I'm gonna get some dinner and then I'll move to the rear.